Between the Christopher Lee Dracula, the Marvel Dracula, and now Robin, I'm starting to think I should just retitle this Vampire Month. Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation. As spooky season continues, today I'm taking a stab at the DC Multiverse, DC vs. Vampires, Damian Wayne Robin, and don't worry, we're also going to be sinking our teeth into some head swaps. Starting with the packaging, and Vampire Robin comes in the standard DC Multiverse window box coffin, you know, like Snow White. Someday my prince will come. Diana Prince, that is. He does have a gold label on account of being a Walmart exclusive. If you're still looking for him in stores, by the way, here's the UPC. The spine specifies this is DC vs. Vampires, but if there was any doubt, here's a picture of him on the back. For packaging, I'm giving Vampire Robin 5 points. Moving on to presentation, and Vampire Damian stands at about 6 1/4 inches, or thereabouts 15.5 centimeters, and is near complete reuse of Infinite Frontier Robin. The only new piece is this vampire head. Referring back to the box, and while the artwork is fairly stylized, the head's a lot more detailed than usual. Well, compared to other Damians anyway. In that aspect, it helps him to fit in pretty well with the rest of the DC vs. Vampires collection. One nice thing about Vampire Damian is that he's only been recently turned, so he still has normal enough looking skin. That'll come in handy later for swaps. Otherwise, a lot of it really boils down to what color scheme you prefer. While I do know it's comics accurate, I'm not the biggest fan of Robin in these colors, though I'm guessing the gray is supposed to set up his future as Batman. Still, when I think Robin, I think this, and referring once more to the box, it does seem close enough to what he wore in the comic. Comparing him for a moment to the Rebirth figure, and that color scheme is near identical. That's also going to come into play later with part swaps. Unlike Rebirth, I do love that bit of yellow on the inside of the cape. The cape, of course, having that nice leather texture. Don't get me wrong, I love a wired soft goods cape, but I do appreciate the textures and the sculpted detail when a plastic one is done well. Speaking of sculpted detail, this particular version of Robin has lots of knitting in the black sections. Nice little punch of gray added to the legs. As a reminder, we just revisited these legs with the Page Puncher Damian. I will say the paint around the belt's a little bit sloppy, but in terms of what the figure looks like, that's really my only criticism. Well, that and the fact that it would have been nice if they could have used either black or dark gray pins for the upper leg. Docking him ever so slightly for some sloppy paint. For presentation, I'm giving Vampire Robin 4 points. Moving on to Poseability, and we did revisit a lot of this articulation in the Page Puncher's version, so I'm kinda gonna speed run through this guy. From the top, and Damian's head is on a dumbbell joint. He can only look up this high. As a reminder, this is straight ahead, and he can only look this far down. He does have an adequate neck-biting tilt, and of course side to side. Moving down, and the top layer of cape is a relatively hard piece. As such, he can only raise his arms about 45 degrees. Fortunately, there is a rotator cuff to give him a bit of forward and back, and then moving down the arm, he has bicep swivel. Damian also has double-jointed elbows. At the ends of his arms, Damian has wrist balls that can swivel and hinge either up and down or side to side. I will say the range is a bit impeded though by the cuffs. Shifting to the torso, and Robin has a rubber overlay covering internal articulation. He can arch back this far, which is okay. For comparison, this is standing straight, but he can hunch forward this far, which honestly does really impress me. I do worry about the wear and tear over time, but the range is better than what McFarlane usually gets with a diaphragm. I will say the side-to-side tilt isn't as good as usual, but it's there, and of course he does have twist. Below the utility belt, and Robin has ball joint hips. They can kick this high, which is really good, and do a perfect split. No real twist, unfortunately, but Damian does have double-jointed knees, toe articulation, and McFarlane ankles that can swivel, hinge, though watch out for this cuff, and like Damian Wayne from human to undead, pivot. In some ways, Damian's better than usual, but in other ways, he's a bit more limited. For Poseability, I'm giving Damian a still very spooktacular 4 points. Moving on to Playability, and this is the primary reason that I wanted to get a hold of this figure. Starting with accessories, and of course Damian has a trading card and a figure stand. If you want to read what it says, pause here. Just know that it's more about Damian in general and not really about the vampire story. For me, I'm way more excited about the other accessories, and the stakes have never been higher. Get it? Vampire? Stake? Yeah, Robin comes with a wooden stake. And with all the vampire figures we've been looking at, that's kind of a nice thing to have. Additionally, Damian comes with a sword. It's the same one that came with Infinite Frontier and Page Punchers, but now with a gold hilt, and honestly that looks fine. What it really comes down to is hands. He comes preloaded with the same two that came on Infinite Frontier, that being an accessory holding right hand and a left-handed fist. But he also includes a right-handed fist, a left-handed pointer, an open right hand, and an accessory holding left hand, meaning that not only can you pose him holding the sword in either hand, you can also have him gripping it with both. This is everything I wanted with the Page Punchers version. To be honest, same thing with Rebirth. In terms of swapability, the greens and style don't match from glove to glove, but that's okay, because you can swap the entire arm. And if you swap Rebirth, that gives you a double jointed elbow. By doing an arm swap, any one of your Damians can have all the hands you want. Well packed as Damian may be, playability is more than just accessories. It's also about how well your figure plays with others. Starting with the other DC vs. Vampire figures I've looked at, and here we have Green Lantern, Superman, which was built off the Page Puncher's body, and the Joker. As for the rest of the Bat family, and here we have Nightfall and Rebirth versions of Tim Drake Robin, Better Than Batman and Titans Wave versions of Dick Grayson as Nightwing, and Dick Grayson as Batman. Otherwise, and here's New 52 and 3 Jokers versions of the Red Hood, and then for Batgirl, here's Art of the Crime and 3 Jokers versions of Barbara Gordon, and the Target exclusive Cassandra Cain. For Damian's father and the head of the Bat family, and here's 3 Jokers and Rebirth versions of Batman, Blue and Gray and Black and Gray Hush Batman, and Blue and Gray and Black and Gray versions of Nightfall Batman. Damian better watch out though, because for a 7-inch scale Vampire Hunter, and here we have the Marvel Select Blade. Of course, for a relative scale comparison, here's Robin with Pizza Spidey and the Spectacular Spider-Man. It's wild to me how he's the exact same size as Pizza Spidey, and as always, here he is with Stealth Iron Man. But don't worry, I haven't forgotten about head swaps. First things first, and for the one I'm the most interested in, here we have Rebirth. For this combination, I'm just going to be focusing on the Rebirth head on this body, mainly because I'm sure that's what most of you want to see. The skin tones are a perfect match, and if you wanted to make this your Robin, I think it would look great. Next up is Infinite Frontier. Given that these bodies are the same, I know it might seem kind of strange to do this swap, but really it's all about this color scheme. For those of you who like this head, I think it looks really good. Other way around, and I like this a lot better. To me, the black, gray, and red just feels more like a vampire, and if I ever display the vampire collection, this might just be how I do it. Lastly, and here's the recently released Page Punchers. I'm not sure if there's anyone out there who really wants this combination, though I will say the wired cape is nice. Pulling the hood up does add to the creepiness. Truthfully though, I'm a bit more interested in how this looks. The skin tones are a bit different, but because of the high collar it is hard to tell, and honestly this combination looks really good. Because of the head and part swap potential, this Damian is a must-have. For playability, I'm giving this Robin a fantastic 5 points. This leaves us with nothing left to discuss but the price. Vampire Robin is a Walmart exclusive and retailed for $22.99 if you can find him in store, but I'm seeing him on eBay for as low as $15, and honestly, he's worth it. Even if you don't care about the vampire aspect, just the part swap potential makes him a great purchase. For price, I'm giving Vampire Robin 5 points, coming out to a blood-curdling total of 4.6 out of 5. For more videos, check out one of these, and until next time, play nice, have fun, and be spooky.